Soulmates, thanks so much for joining us as we have plenty to discuss on this Wednesday midweek. We're following the mothers of the movement and what they're doing to turn their grief into action. And the family of Shanquella Robinson is still speaking out. We want to welcome you to FOXSOUL's Black Report. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte, plus the black couple who's fighting the state of Texas for custody of their newborn, and the Chicago woman who is suing Netflix and Kanye West. They're the stories that impact our people.
Bringing our news, our views, and our voice, topping our conversation today. Let's go to Tennessee, where activists want stricter gun laws to reduce gun violence. Reverend William J. Barber II joined thousands of students, politicians, and clergy in Nashville, quote, on Moral Monday, a big rally there to demand change. Gun violence, poverty, and health care denial were symbolized by a coffin recession at the rally. Barber says that Tennessee's political process resembles conservative movements nationwide. He urged lawmakers to defend democracy and oppose, quote, policy murder. Reps Justin Jones and Justin Pearson were expelled for protesting gun laws after a March shooting, school shooting that is, but were of course later reinstated as reported.
And this was a major rally. I mean, the enthusiasm for change in Tennessee is overwhelming. There are over 7,000 people that attended this rally that Reverend Barber and so many others hosted. And what was so powerful about what he said, quote, all across the country, and especially in the South, we're seeing attempted political coup d'etats. That's what he said. And he said this has to be exposed. And so, you know, the organizing work, the activism work that continues in places like Tennessee and places all around the South, you know, are making a difference, because I think it's raising consciousness. It's connecting the dots for people. And it's saying what's happening in Tennessee is not just Tennessee.
And kind of jaw-dropping, jarring, if you will, optics on this protest, as many were holding coffins, in particular Representative Jones holding an infant-size coffin, you know, into the state house. He was stopped. They were blocked, so they weren't able to take the coffins actually onto the state floor. But for them, it symbolized the loss of life from the very young all the way to the much older in our society, in our culture. And I think they definitely drove that point home, even though they were stopped at the house doors. But it made for a great representation and symbolization of what we're actually fighting for.
Clearly a lot at stake in Tennessee and beyond. Well, a Virginia grand jury indicted multiple people on felony charges for carrying blazing torches to intimidate during the Charlottesville white supremacist rally almost 6 years ago. In a news release, the Albemarle County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office said that the indictments pertained to August 11th, 2017. That's when white nationalists holding torches marched through the University of Virginia campus, screaming, "Jews will not replace us." Electronic court documents reveal that 3 people have been unsealed, although the total number of indictments remains unknown. Now, each faces 1 count of burning an object to intimidate someone. The maximum sentence is 5 years.
All right, Soulmates, now to another big conversation happening today. An 84-year-old white man, Andrew Lester, has been charged with first-degree assault and armed criminal action for shooting 16-year-old Ralph Yarl, an honor student who mistakenly went to Lester's home while attempting to pick up his younger siblings. Now, despite having no reasonable grounds to believe Yarl was attempting to break in, Lester opened fire, believing that someone was trying to break into his home. The incident has sparked major outrage across the country and has raised questions about the self-defense policies in the U.S., such as the Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground laws. Missouri, where the shooting occurred, is among 30 states that have Stand Your Ground laws. Nicordelai.
Now, Courtney, what burglar rings the doorbell? Who does that? You know, who doesn't ask who's at the door? And so the idea that he feared for his life and he thought that maybe somebody was coming to rob him, that seems pretty far-fetched and hard to believe. But, you know, this is just another reminder of how these stand your ground laws have been perverted. I mean, even going back to Trayvon Martin, that's when a lot of us learned about these stand your ground laws in places like Florida, where people have used these, and dare I say even misused the law, in order to justify killing innocent innocent people.
Yeah, well, tapping a little bit more into this law as far as Missouri is concerned, stand your ground does not mean shoot first. And so if you're talking about, someone ringing a doorbell, that puts, delivery services, in danger. So from what I gather, these defense lawyers are going to have a very hard time trying to prove his innocence. The protesters there are still angry that it took so long to bring this man to charges. He was able to bail out because of the type of charges, only a $200,000 bond, which he was able to post, and his hearing will be virtual. So he's home, comfortable, as this family continues to reel and this young man continues to cover. So, although things are moving along, the community and protesters and leaders are still very disappointed in this process thus far.
And this is going to be a real test to those stand your ground laws because, as you mentioned, the Missouri law allows people to use deadly force under certain circumstances, including against someone who attempts to unlawfully enter a dwelling, residence, or vehicle. And so this is going to be a major test, and I have a feeling that a lot of us are going to be paying extra close attention. Now, moving along, families of black men killed by police or gun violence unite to turn grief into action and prevent further instances of police violence. Families of Eric Garner, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Tyree Nichols, Amir Locke, and Botham Jean discussed their police reform efforts at a National Action Network panel in Manhattan. Memphis recently passed the Driving Equality Act in honor of Tyree Nichols to ban traffic stops for secondary violations. Now, while still grieving, the families are fighting for legislative changes and police reform to prevent future tragedies.
And joining us now is mother of Eric Garner and New York State Police Officer Elliot Boyce. We want to welcome you to Fox Soul's Black Report. Thank you so much for taking some time out today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Ms. Carr, we want to start with you. We understand that you recently participated in the panel held by the National Action Network along with some other mothers of the movement. Can you tell us about the bond between your families and how will you be channeling your collective grief into action moving forward?
Yes, we mothers and even some fathers, we do have a bond because it's a club that you don't want to be a part of. But once you are thrown into this, we do unite and we grieve together, we laugh together, we get things together, strategies together to get laws changed, and we embrace and empower each other. And this is what we do because we understand each other's grief. A lot of people, they think they understand our pain, and they really don't. We know that they sympathize with us, but we can empathize with each other.
Indeed. Elliot Boyce, Officer Boyce, we want to bring you into the conversation. Last week, Memphis City Council passed the Driving Equity Act in honor of Tyree Nichols, ending police stops for minor infractions. Is this a game changer when it comes to driving while black, across the nation? Your thoughts on that?
Policies that are put in place that are created to pretty much create guidelines are always beneficial to the community, the people in which police officers serve, but they're only guidelines. So strict policies, strict guidance, strict followances of these guidelines are the things that are going to make change. Better policing in the sense of training, better networking and engagement with the community also goes a long way towards improving community and police interactions. So though it's a monumental, it's very important to have in place, we still have to have police guidelines that really hit it home that there's going to be consequences if, in fact, you don't follow the rules.
Ms. Carr, you helped to pass the Eric Garner Anti-Chokehold Act in 2020. Do you believe that Congress will pass a version of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that includes the anti-chokehold provisions? And if not, will you take your fight to other states?
Yes, well, we are very hopeful that it will pass because it will protect us as well as the police. They are not passing it. They do not want to pass it because of this qualified immunity piece that's in it. And the qualified immunity piece is that the police as well as the city can be sued You can be sued for your home once you are found guilty of wrongdoing, like myself with my son being choked to death for no reason, a minor infraction was what it was. And they could lose everything, pension, home, their savings, and they don't want that, and they're fighting hard against it. But in the case that is not passed in session, we are prepared to take it further. And, it was a fight trying to get it passed in the state. So we know what the fight is that's ahead of us. But, we will fight. That's what we've been doing, and that's what we will do.
Indeed, and continue to do. Officer Boyce, to you, in the late 90s, you became a biased crimes investigator. Tell us just about what that is and the difference, having more Black folks in these roles. What difference could that make when you talk about addressing the increase in hate crimes and what these mothers have had to endure?
Being a biased crime investigator really goes a long way for me to understand the things that police officers are investigating and some of the things that police officers have to deal with on a daily basis. But more so being part of multiple national organizations, it was really important that people understand that though there's biases, the key to changing these practices to flood police departments with qualified African-American police officers and Latino police officers that come from communities that oftentimes are subjected to bias incidents. So they have a better understanding, which makes the police department better. And also you police from within, because it's a lot easier to be a police officer. I spent 35 years with the state police and recently retired. I see the impact of being able to network with the community and being able to be a Black police officer within the ranks that is able to educate the police officers that are there.
Sure.
But let's make no mistake, Black police officers have to be held accountable to make sure this change. And if you're just getting along in the agency, that just creates a cycle. That's not diversity, equity, inclusion at all.
And speaking of Black police officers, I mean, right there in Memphis, we saw through the Tyree Nichols case, a number of Black police officers, who were a part of that tragedy, right? And for a lot of people, it was another reminder that blue culture can sometimes trump any sort of connection to community, no?
Yes, 100%. As a Black police officer, police officers, period, that was a huge embarrassment to us. Their acts, what they did and how they performed it, and it's not a tragic act, it was a criminal act, period. So with that being said, we have to have conscious police officers within the ranks, police officers that are escalating up the ranks where they are in positions to create policies and procedures and have control over behavior. But with that being said, police officers want no bad police officers regardless of what color they are. We want good. And in this particular case, unfortunately, we had Black officers that basically embarrassed the profession, and there's no place for them there.
No matter what color, we want good. Well said. Mother Carr, as we wrap up, where can our soulmates, those are our viewers, go to learn more about your work and the work of all of these amazing mothers of the movement?
Yes, well, all of us, we have our own foundation. We gather with my foundation. I have mothers from all around the nation that we gather yearly to embrace, to empower each other, and just have a day of reckoning. And you could go to my foundation, which is the ERIC Initiative Foundation, and the ERIC stands for Eliminating Racism and Inequality Collectively. That's what my son's name stands for. And that's .org.
Our thanks to Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, and Elliot Boyce for joining us right here on Fox Soul's Black Report. Please come back again soon.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on here. Shanquilla Robinson's family still plans to file a civil lawsuit after no charges were brought against anyone for her death. Take a listen.
and no charges be brought when we see and witness some form of violent attack towards her. Everybody's seen that video. And then they come back and here we is, they brought us in a room. It's about 10 or 12 FBI agencies that all had a part in the investigation. And the only thing they can tell us that her death is undetermined.
Yeah, so adding to the confusion, there were 2 autopsies conducted in Mexico, here in the U.S., with 2 very different conclusions. Now, despite evidence of a woman beating Shanquilla in a video, U.S. investigators disagree with the family's belief that the attack contributed to her death. The family's lawyer claims justice wasn't served as U.S. prosecutors didn't take any action. The family plans to pressure government leaders to act and may have her body exhumed for a third opinion. And how much more heartbreak can you take?
Right. And the family's lawyer, Sue Ann Robinson, who we've had as a guest here on Fox Soul's Black Report, claims that the federal government hasn't explained why it's heavily relying on their autopsy instead of the timely one that the Mexican officials had taken. And so there's just still so many unanswered questions about this. This is just very strange that our federal government, doesn't seem to be, addressing this tragedy,
or even motivated to address it.
In a way that is substantive, in a way that is clear. It almost feels like something is being hidden from the family.
Yeah, and that's why it is our duty here at Fox Soul's Black Report to continue to stay on top of stories like this, even when they faded from the headlines. Keep Shanquilla's family and her name top of mind and in our thoughts as we continue to help them, support them in seeking justice.
That's right. New York Senate confirmed Rowan Wilson as the state's first black chief judge earlier this week, following the rejection of Governor Kathy Hochul's initial nominee for the position. Wilson has been an associate judge of the Court of Appeals since 2017 and is known for his record on civil rights, labor, and environmental issues. Senate Republicans described Wilson as, quote, an activist judge. But his nomination was praised by state Democratic Senator Brad Hoylman-Segal. Wilson replaces Judge Janet DeFiore, who resigned in August, and his confirmation leaves a vacancy for an associate judge on the top court.
Some good news here, as medical officials say NFL star Damar Hamlin is fully cleared to return to the field, causing lots of debate today. Should he or shouldn't he return? Now, without fear of any setbacks or complications, the clearance came after Hamlin met with a third and final specialist. You remember he collapsed. His collapse led to widespread support from NFL and across America, really across the world, with donations made to Hamlin's charitable organization topping more than $9 million. Hamlin also received the NFL LPA's Alan Page Community Award for his charity works.
Coming up, the dangers of fibroids and their heavy impact on black women.
More on the signs to look for and what the CDC has to say about the increase in cases. Those stories and more coming up for you soulmates right here on Fox Soul's Black Report.
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, a black couple in Texas is fighting for custody of their newborn after the state's Child Protective Services said they violated law and safety of their child.
Now, the parents are now calling out the state officials, saying that CPS is policing the well-being of black families. It has been almost a month since little Mila was taken from her parents, Tamisha and Rodney Jackson, by Child Protective Services in Texas. This all comes after they sought guidance from their licensed midwife to treat a common condition rather than follow the directive from their pediatrician. A court will now have to decide if Mila will return home.
And we've seen so many stories in the headlines of, really this tension between doctors and doulas, doctors and midwives, right? And there are a lot of doctors out there that, are uncomfortable, with that, with folks opting, to deliver their kids at home and have a more natural birth. And so that really seems to be the intention of this black couple and the kid had jaundice, right? And they called the doctor. The doctor said, okay, this is how you can handle it at home. And then all of a sudden, things changed, and Child Protective Services comes knocking at their door.
Yeah, but are we also seeing, some bias with, profiling based on race? There's another story where a couple was traveling through the states on their way to Chicago from the South. I want to say Texas as well. They were stopped, 5 kids of their kids in the car, a small amount of marijuana, and those kids were taken out of their custody as well. And if I'm not mistaken, they're still fighting for that custody as well. And so along with the medical argument that you brought up, there's also an argument as to, is there some racial bias, some racial discrimination happening when it comes to cases that deal with African American families?
And we know that Black kids are overrepresented in the foster care system, right? And, there are a number of reasons for that, but I think racial bias is a part of that reason. And so why did that doctor decide to call Child Protective Services on this particular couple? What motivated that really extreme decision? We'll continue to keep our eye on the story. Well, there's growing concern in Florida following the state's approval of a 6-week abortion ban, as experts say it will greatly impact Black and Latina families. Thankfully, the law signed by Governor DeSantis will take effect only if Florida's current 15-week ban is upheld. That case is now being held by the U.S. Supreme Court. Advocates say their main concern is that women of color will be forced to carry out unwanted pregnancies, which experts say could lead to worse economic and mental health outcomes for them.
Yeah, listen, I know that people feel very passionately about all the policies and all the laws concerning abortion. I just feel that women should have the right to decide what they want to do with their body. And for me, it doesn't matter whether I believe in abortion or not. I believe that what overrides that, what supersedes that, is that I should have a right to decide, what I want to do with my body, how I want to do it, and even where I want to do it. And so that is where I, have the rub. That is where I have the hang up. And I sort of kind of try to stay out of, is abortion right or wrong, and all the moral fight. I just believe that women have a right to decide what they choose to do with their bodies.
Yeah, and where are the libertarians of America, the people that are fighting for freedom, freedom from government intrusion, all of those folks? Like, where are they when it comes to this particular fight? For the people that are out there that proclaim that they're pro-life, right? Well, what does it mean to be pro-maternal health, pro-Black maternal health? You don't really see them saying too much about improving access to comprehensive maternal health care for women out there, but you see them over there trying to ban, abortions from 15 weeks to 6 weeks to no weeks.
Across the board, women should be able to do with their bodies as they choose. All right, moving on here. Baby Dove is doing the work to make sure access to doulas are more common and easier for expecting Black mothers. Baby Dove says their main goal is to help close the Black maternal care gap in the U.S. They've now partnered with Sister Midwife Productions to launch a new Black doula directory, serving as a national resource for expecting mothers to have individual access to Black doulas across the nation. Now, the directory is expected to launch this summer.
And, to date, there are over 1,000 Black doulas that are featured on this directory. I mean, that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, including Erykah Badu, who's made her mission to become a doula and to teach others that ministry, if you will. She's really leading the way of the popularity of the doulas. And as Black women or the culture, as a whole, as the trust with the medical field continues to wane, I can see why there's a trend to bring in a doula to that very personal, private, intimate process, and maybe sort of kind of not necessarily do away, but make maybe, the doctors in the hospital that second tier of care if needed. I understand it. I understand it. We just want it to be safe and healthy, and we want the best for mom, baby, and the family.
And I think this is an interesting moment because we see such a movement around natural hair and natural births, and people, embracing sort of veganism, if not completely, they're incorporating, more sort of raw food, organic food into their diets. I think a lot of folks are out there connecting the dots and saying that, if I want a shot at longevity, then, why not give these natural opportutes a chance?
I've tried, but I need a little piece of fish or a piece of poultry. I can do without the red meat and the pork, but I need a little chicken, a little fish every now and again.
I got you covered.
Thank you.
Now, off the heels of Black Maternal Health Week, Black doctors are making the community more aware of uterine fibroids, a growing issue for expecting Black mothers. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, uterine fibroids are made of muscle cells that grow in and around the walls of the uterus and are the most common non-cancerous tumors in women. The CDC details that 80% of all Black women in the U.S. will likely experience this issue by age 50. Experts say the risk factors are being overweight and African American. Fibroids can cause heavy or painful periods, bleeding between periods, tightness, or a full feeling in the lower abdomen.
Yeah, this has been a movement amongst Black women and Black medical folks and educators for a while now. There's even been, some progress in regards to how to treat the fibroids. Again, you have the natural lane, and then you have more where, medicine can help out with the different non-invasive techniques and solutions, if you will, that are out there now. But it remains really a big issue, and it is so debilitating. I've never had issues with fibroids, but of course girlfriends and sores who have, and it really can put a damper on your life, your mental well-being, because you're always kind of not feeling on point. And again, we're just going to have to really stay steadfast and really stay on top of the researchers and the medical community to help us out with how to continue to deal and hopefully resolve or severely minimize this issue that a lot of Black women face.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of sister friends of mine, family members of mine, have suffered from fibroids, and oftentimes we see that Black women do not get the care that they need as early as they need it, and so that's a contributing factor that sort of makes matters worse. But we know that we need a lot more research that's focused on Black women,
particularly because we're just built different, and we're just going to have to continue to push the medical community to understand that. Even when you're talking, I just got a mammogram the other day. Our breasts have a tendency, our tissue has a tendency to be thicker. We're just built differently. That magic is just built a little differently, and we need specific diagnosis. We need specific research that will particularly address our bodies and our bodies in particular areas, so we can get some better answers and some better results, and our sisters can survive these conditions.
Another reminder that Black doctors matter.
That's right. All right, still ahead, changing the face of podcasts and radio for people of color, especially Black women.
That's right. Learn all about the Mocha Podcast Network and the work that they're doing when we return. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report.
Hey, Sherry.
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, multiple lawsuits are alleging that several corporations have made false claims about the diversity and equity efforts.
You don't say. Following George Floyd's murder in 2020, many businesses, you remember, moved quickly to issue statements and adopt new procedures to combat racial, ethnic, and gender inequalities among their employee ranks. Now, according to Bloomberg Law, nearly 40 lawsuits allege that various businesses, including Wells Fargo and Company and Delta Airlines, made false claims about their efforts to diversity and equity over the past 3 years. Soulmates, this is why we have to stay vigilant. But we've had these conversations, Nick Quarterline, when we say, where's the money? Where are the promises? And, a lot of them disappeared, up in smoke. And they have not circled back around to make good on those promises. Everybody came to the floor. Everybody came to the carpet, after, as the George Floyd uprising continued to take place and made these promises. And most have not, as according to Bloomberg, most have not made good.
You know, and it's not just about the money, it's about the political will. It's about the organizational leadership to make it happen, to operationalize the change. And so, you know, part of what, you know, this, you know, article sort of revealed is that the distinction between, you know, quotas and aspirations. And following the murder of George Floyd, there are a lot of folks that, you know, came out, you know, and declared, you know, with specific numbers and specific goals, and you know they haven't made good on that, right? And so that has sort of opened them up to these lawsuits where people are saying, well, you said, and you haven't done it. And so, you know, I think, you know, this is sort of the next level of work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion industry.
But I need them to also address how some of these companies have gone as far as creating like these pseudo shell black companies that really aren't, you know, black owned or don't really, you know, have the blackness as they try to, you know, portray them. So, you know, let's talk about that. We talked a little bit about Amazon and how they're coming under fire because businesses that they've labeled as black weren't necessarily black. So, I mean, if we're going to address this, let's address all of it and get it all out here on the table and show us the money.
More work to do. Well, the Miami City Commission has unanimously passed a resolution authorizing the city to begin negotiations for a long-awaited Black History Museum. They're in talks with Miami-Dade for the release of a $20.5 million county fund dedicated to the construction in Virginia Key Beach Park. Yeah, the museum is intended to honor the park's history as a black-only beach during the Jim Crow. It's intended to highlight the stories of Miami's black community, particularly those of Bahamian immigrants who count themselves among the city's founders. We are excited to have a visionary leader joining us who's been at the forefront of multimedia content and communications for over 25 years as the founder of Miles Ahead Entertainment and Broadcasting and the Mocha Podcast Network. She has created a space for authentic voices to reach diverse audiences from a Black perspective.
Yeah, her commitment to amplifying unapologetic thought leaders and reflecting the culture, lifestyle, and diaspora of people of color is truly inspiring. Please join us in welcoming the trailblazing Sheila Etheridge right here on Fox Soul's Black Report. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Sheila, so nice to see you. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind the creation of the Mocha Podcast Network and its focus on women of color?
Well, 12 years ago, I started the Cafe Mocha radio show. It's a nationally syndicated radio show for women of color. And they told us we couldn't do it. You could never have women lead the conversation. And 12 years later, we're the #1 network now for women of color on the radio. And as the industry grew, we needed more time to tell our stories. And so that's really kind of was the impetus for the Mocha Podcast Network, is to be a platform for women of color to hear our voices, our opinions, and most importantly, to inspire one another. We launched right around right before the pandemic. And so we needed that voice and we needed that vehicle to kind of inspire one another. So that's really kind of how it came about as an outgrowth of the Cafe Mocha radio show.
And let me tell you, it is delicious. The guests are yummy, and it is just an amazing conversation. So what do you believe sets the Mocha Broadcast Network apart from other podcasts that are now out there trying to do what you've been doing for a while, especially?
Well, what really sets us apart is our content. You're not going to hear about the gossip and what's going on every day. You're going to hear conversations that inspire one another. We think it's so important that, as women, that we amplify our voices, we be a vehicle for our voices, but most importantly, that we inspire one another. When I went to Sherry Shepherd and Kim Whitley, they were like, why do a podcast? And I said, look, you are, what you all speak on as two funny mamas with children and navigating now the entertainment world and film and TV and taking care as being mothers is important. And that really has been kind of the flagship on how we curated our podcast for the network, is that it has to be about a niche and it has to be inspiring women. And inspiring not just women, but everyone, because men like to listen like a fly on the wall.
They better. They better.
We sure do. With such a diverse, I just want to pick up on that thread for a second. So with, a diverse range of podcast topics and genres on the network, how do you go about curating content and selecting podcasters to make sure it's authentic representation of Black women, of women of color, and not, just sort of a caricature of who we are, but really authentic voices.
Right.
I go back to the old-fashioned way of doing business, and that is sitting down and meeting and getting to know the person. I think it's so important that you can tell a lot when you meet a person in person, and you have a real conversation and you hear what their journey is. Podcasts are all about storytelling. And so knowing what their journey is, what they want to offer, what they've been through, because, podcasts are about the trials and tribulations too. So that's really how we curate it. But what's great is that we've got our bigger podcasters, which are the Sherrys and the Kims, Cafe Mocha, In Vogue, and, Rolanda Watts, but we've got the baby podcasters too, that they get the opportunity to share their vision and their journey with some of these bigger podcasts. So we have a nice group of listening audience that comes to our platform.
Yeah. So with your extensive, experience in the media industry, I come from radio, so I know exactly who you are, Miss Sheila. Salute to you. Oh, I know the climb, ma'am. Yes, I do. What advice would you give to aspiring content creators, especially the ones you just mentioned, women of color, looking to make their mark in the podcasting world specifically?
That now is the time. Most importantly, the technology has allowed us this vehicle, and to just do it. Just take your shot and do it. And a podcaster, it does the unique and perfect thing about podcasts is that you can do them anywhere. And keep in mind, podcasts are moving to become vodcast because everything, needless to say, is video. So now is the time to do it.
Yeah, so now you got to look cute. There was a time in podcasting
at all times
where you got to put it all on nowadays.
There's no escaping
it really has evolved. It really has.
That's right.
Yeah.
In a minute, we'll be consuming it all through YouTube.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
That's right. Sheila, before we let you go, how can people find out more about you and your work, and how can they join the movement?
Well, two things. One is you can easily go to the milesaheadentertainment.com, and you'll see all of our production work that we've done over the years, as well as what we're doing with the podcast network. You can check out the Mocha Podcast Network. You can check out Mocha TV, and you can check out Cafe Mocha Radio. We want the word Cafe Mocha to be synonymous with women of color. Yeah. So wherever you find that, you can find us.
Yeah. Is there anyone in particular who you haven't captured just yet, who you want to snatch up and put on one of your podcasts or be a part of your network, whether it be permanently or temporary, a voice out there that you've been vying for a minute?
There is a young lady. Her name is KJ Rose, and she comes from the music industry.
Okay.
She was at Bad Boy, and she now has become a motivational speaker. And she speaks to young women because she's young. I always say, if you keep young people around you, then you stay in a learning state of mind.
There it is.
And this young lady has something special that I'm going to get her.
Our thanks to
KJ Rose.
We'll help put the word out there.
That's right, KJ Rose. Our thanks to Sheila Eldridge, the life force and chief creative around Miles Ahead Entertainment, and Cafe Mocha. We thank you and salute you. You are an honorary soulmate.
That's right.
And so that means you got to come back again soon.
Yeah.
And we love FOXSOUL. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. We enjoyed you. Have a good one. Take care.
Take care now. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Up next, our entertainment headlines, including a Chicago woman who is suing Netflix over her appearance in Kanye's documentary. We're gonna break it all down to you when you return. We'll be back as well. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. Stay close.
Welcome back, Soulmates, to Fox Soul's Black Report. Megan Thee Stallion is speaking out for a final time about the Tory Lanez shooting, about Tory Lanez shooting her foot.
Yeah. In a cover feature with Elle magazine, the Grammy Award-winning artist said even her industry peers joined in on accusing her of lying about the shooting. She said she wanted to keep the case private, but once her attacker made it public, everything changed.
That's right. Lanez is awaiting sentencing after his December assault conviction for the 2020 shooting.
Yeah, a lot of fallout, with friendships and connections and as friends and associates, as this case played out. I think that's just sometimes what happens when you gain celebrity status and, all eyes are on you and things like this happen, or the gossip gets out, or he say, she say, or she say, she say. Sometimes it's the friendships and the close bonds that are sacrificed. So I can see Megan kind of shedding, some excess weight.
Yeah, but shout out to Megan Thee Stallion for having the courage to share her story. I mean, this is her story. She didn't have to share it with us, and she did. It's just another reminder.
Well, she really didn't have a choice because they were putting it out there.
But it's a reminder of how prevalent violence against women is. There's a reason why we have a federal Violence Against Women Act, and this is a part of what it can look like. And so whether you're a celebrity or not, there are a lot of folks like Megan Thee Stallion, who will never hit the headlines, who have to contend with violence, from a former partner. And so, I hope that by her sharing her story, that other folks have the courage to share theirs, before that violence ends up taking their life.
Yeah, and here's another story. Let's go to Chicago, where a woman has filed a lawsuit against Netflix and filmmakers Cootie Simmons and Chike Oza, claiming that they exploited her with the release of Kanye West's documentary Genius. Cynthia Love, who appeared in Kanye West's 2003 music video Through the Wire, directed by Cootie and Chike, alleges that an extended version of her appearance in the video was included in the documentary without her consent. Love says she was in an altered state and unable to provide consent at the time, and that the video has caused her emotional distress and harmed her reputation. She is seeking $30,000 in damages. I'm gonna have to run that Netflix documentary back and see exactly what, part of the documentary she is addressing. I know Cootie and some of those guys in the early Kanye camp, and I just think it was an effort of taking all of that material that at this point is probably fair game and including it to tell, Kanye's story from their perspective. So I don't know, I don't know how much weight she's going to have in order to kind of move through this lawsuit. I mean, I actually wondered from the very beginning whether or not, this footage was fair game. I mean, this was done a long time ago, and I was sort of, suspicious of whether or not anybody actually signed an appearance release in order to have that video taken of them and certainly turned into, a documentary sold for profit so many years later. And so, if she's doing this now, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are in that video that may not have signed a release. And so it's strange to me that Hulu, would distribute a video, or excuse me, that Netflix would distribute a video, that didn't have all the releases in place, basically making them vulnerable to these sorts of potential lawsuits. Well, I mean, I'm assuming that Netflix, would think that the producers, had all their, T's crossed and I's dotted. And so it'll be interesting to see, what evidence folks will come up with on both sides to either prove or not prove her claim. Well, now here's something that will brighten your day. Rapper Trick Daddy is... I don't know. No, it won't. Who wrote that? No, it won't. Trick Daddy is undergoing a dental transformation after reportedly not seeing a dentist for, get this y'all, 15 years.
Due to the lack of oral inspection, the rapper's permanent caps were decayed, requiring him to undergo bone loss surgery. Trick Daddy is set to have his bottom teeth removed and receive porcelain veneers. His entire procedure, which has cost him $60,000, will be documented on Love and Hip Hop Miami, with the final results appearing in the first episode of the show's upcoming season later this year. Now, though it took some time, Trick Daddy's now prioritizing his oral health. All right, Trick Daddy. He's tricking out those veneers.
No more veneers, no more grills, no nothing. Let's just stick with this new look in the mouth, and let's go to the dentist every 6 months.
Right.
That's what you're
not
supposed
every
to
15
do.
years.
Yeah,
Yikes.
sometimes I know life happens, so at least don't let a year go
life
by.
happens.
Trick Daddy. But you know what? Listen. It still doesn't take away with how legendary he is in the game of hip hop as we celebrate 50 years, in particular for that area, the Miami, hip hop culture scene. He is still the king. But this is a bit of a turnoff.
But it's a reminder of how important our health is, not just from the neck up, but the neck down. And so our mental health, our oral health, our physical health, our spiritual health, they're all interconnected, right? And there are a lot of folks, that can link the lack of oral care to some cardiovascular related issues.
But sometimes when you let the dental health go too long, it can be detrimental.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I hear you.
And so the fact that he hadn't gone
Trick
to the dentist
Daddy.
in 15 years. Come on, bro. It's a cautionary tale for all of us.
Yeah, it is. All right, soulmates, you better call Tyrone and ask him for, I caught myself, for some concert money, because Erykah Badu is going on tour. The window seat singer has announced a 25 U.S. city tour with support from Mos Def. The tour is titled the Unfollow Me Tour and launches this summer. It's going to hit all the major cities. Tickets go on sale tomorrow.
And she's going to be right here in Detroit, y'all, just saying. Well, the fallout continues over Jonathan Majors' domestic violence allegations. The Creed 3 actor has been dropped by more studios and brands. He'll no longer star in The Man in My Basement or the Otis Redding biopic. The MLB's Texas Rangers also removed Majors from their 2023 season ad campaign that was set to debut on Friday. Plus, Jonathan Majors and Valentino mutually agreed for the actor to not attend the 2023 Met Gala, despite reps for him saying that he did nothing wrong. He's still set to appear in court on May 8th. Alleged, as in nothing has been proven, as in because of that he is still innocent. So, let's fast forward and let's hypothetically say he is cleared and exonerated of all charges. Do these people come running back? And if they do, does Jonathan take them back? I mean, there could be, there's 50-50 that he is innocent. And so, we talked about this yesterday. I question why the abrupt diss, if you will, of him prior to anything being proven or unproven, if you will. I just don't get it. And I have a tendency to think that if he was a different type of an A-list actor, that there'd be a different type of support and people would just be hanging around a little longer to see. Yeah, and there's some people that wonder, well, do they know something that we don't yet know? Who knows? But
even if there is, he's still innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, he is. And the fact that, cancel culture is what it is, and it cancels first and asks questions later, maybe, particularly when it comes to us. That's what's so disturbing about this.
Yeah. All right, up next, the best segment of the show. We call it Black Excellence. We love it.
That's right. We'll introduce you to the woman with the world's largest afro.
Is that her there? Oh, okay, I see now. Okay, wow.
You're watching FOXSOUL's Black Report. More when we come back.
Hey, girl. Wow.
All right, y'all. A sister from Louisiana is flaunting the world's largest afro. Avon Dugas from Reserve has more than a head full of hair, making her the record holder for the largest afro on a living female.
It is so dope. Check it out. Douga's first claimed the Guinness World Record in 2010 with her, wait for it, just wait for it, with her 2010 afro measuring a circumference of 4 feet 4 inches. Her natural bush has only grown larger. Right now, what you see here is measuring 9.84 inches tall, 10.4 inches wide, and 5.41 feet in circumference. Douga's afro is 2 decades in the making since going natural.
That's right. She handles her own hair maintenance with hot oil treatments and oiling her hair with butters that she makes.
You got to say butters.
Butters.
There we go.
That she makes. That's right. Douga's shampoos and conditions at least every 7 days, and her hairdresser keeps her ends clipped and healthy.
I heard that's really key is clipping your ends, and I know as Black women sometimes we don't like it because sometimes our hairstylists cut instead of trim and clip, and so you end up losing a lot of length. But from what I gather, that is really key. And she probably needs to go ahead and launch her hair care line and share her butters, you know, what she oils up with and conditions and washes with. That is absolutely amazing. If I could just have like I don't even need a third of some of what I would take this thing off and you would see an afro puffs,
put that thing
afro
on.
at the top, afro in the back. You'd see it every day. And what would you do?
I'd put it on all the way around. If I grow my hair out, I look like George Jefferson. Right?
Oh,
right. It's not
so you
heavy
just
enough on top.
You just see, you know, nowadays
I just need a little extra right here.
Men are getting into that, and you can look like whoever you want to look like with this new technology for men's hair installs.
Don't tempt me with vacation hair.
Listen, you can go swimming and everything. It's some kind of and it's glued and then they fade it up with the clippers, and baby, that stuff will look like it's coming out your scalp. I promise you. You probably, if you don't want to different, if you walk up in here with hair on your head, I'd fall out. I really, really would.
Would you really?
I absolutely would. For a full rundown on today's stories and more, you can access Fox Soul's video on demand on any of our partners. You can even access past shows and other Black-centered content. Don't forget to download the Fox Soul app. It's free, soulmates. It is absolutely free, and we'd love to have you along 24/7. Don't you walk up here with no extra hair.
I just might.
Well, you know what? It'd be okay, because I do. So it'd be okay for you too. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte. On behalf of the entire team here at Fox Soul's Black Report, stay lifted.
And stay safe. And get you some hair.
This right here. Just right here. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. A little bit.